Ethan Harper stood on the cobblestone sidewalk of a street in Savannah, the early autumn sunlight filtering through the thick canopy of oak trees, casting a play of light and shadow across his face. At 35, Ethan, a white American man with light brown hair and piercing blue eyes, was the embodiment of success. As the founder of Harper Tech, a multi-billion-dollar tech company based in Seattle, he had built his empire with the precision of a programming genius. Magazines called him the architect of the future, but Ethan knew the truth. He controlled everything, except his heart. He didn't want children, didn't want any variable that might disrupt his perfectly coded life. To him, the family was an unsolvable algorithm. Today, Ethan had no plans to be in Savannah. He had flown to Atlanta for a tech conference, where investors swarmed him, vying for a chance to collaborate. But at the last minute, he rented a car and drove 3 hours to Savannah, where he had once lived during college. He told himself it was a spontaneous visit, a brief escape from the suffocating boardrooms and insincere handshakes. But deep down, Ethan knew the real reason. The dreams of Savannah, of a woman he once loved, had returned, haunting him every night in his luxurious but cold apartment. Broughton Street, where he now stood, still held its old-world charm, with its small shops and wrought iron fences. An old café, the Rusty Lantern, came into view, its faded blue sign swinging gently in the breeze. Ethan didn't know why he stopped, but he pushed the door open. The bell above the door jingled, and the scent of roasted coffee blended with cinnamon filled his senses. The café wasn't crowded, just a few groups murmuring. Ethan was about to order an espresso when his gaze landed in the corner of the room. At an oak table, a black woman with loosely tied curly hair was leaning down, cutting a pancake into small pieces for a boy of about 7 in a blue hoodie. Her smile was radiant, like sunlight piercing through clouds, lighting up the entire space. Beside her, 2 other children, a little girl with neatly braided hair and a mischievous boy, whispered as they shared a plate of scrambled eggs. Under the table, another small girl, with only her yellow bow visible, was busy picking something up. Ethan's heart pounded, not because of the woman's beauty, but because he recognized her. Maya Johnson, his ex-wife. With her warm brown skin and deep brown eyes, Maya had once been the center of Ethan's world 10 years ago. She embodied life, of things he never understood. Joy in simplicity, love without calculation. But Ethan had walked away, not because he stopped loving her, but because he was afraid that love would cost him control. Now, watching Maya laugh with 4 children, Ethan felt the ground beneath him had vanished. Those children. They had his blue eyes, cleft chin, the same smile he remembered from old photos of himself. He stepped forward, then stopped, his hand tightening at the edge of his coat. Maya looked up, catching his gaze through the spoon she was holding. Her smile vanished, replaced by guarded alertness. She stood up slowly, positioning herself between the children and Ethan, like a lioness protecting her cubs. "Ethan," she said, her voice low and cold. "What are you doing here?" Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Maya, I just happened to be passing through." The words sounded awkward, like a broken line of code. He glanced at the 4 children, his heart pounding. Are they yours?" Maya's hands clenched, her eyes sharp. "They're my children," she emphasized, as if erasing any possible link between Ethan and them. The girl with the braided hair, likely the eldest, looked up. "Mom, who is he?" she asked, her tone curious, but laced with suspicion. Maya placed a firm, gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. "Just someone Mommy used to know," Olivia. Then she turned back to Ethan, her voice lowering. If you want to talk, meet me by the river after school. But Ethan, don't hurt my children. Ethan nodded, unable to speak further. He watched Maya lead the children away, each child holding hands with the next, forming a tidy little line. The cafe door closed behind them, but the image was burned into his mind. A family he never knew existed. A part of himself he had abandoned. He sat down, his hands trembling as he placed them on the table. In the past 7 years, Ethan had achieved everything he'd ever dreamed of. Tech awards, a TED Talk, and an AI company leading the industry. But at this moment, all of that didn't seem very sensible. He pulled out his phone and searched for Maya's name on social media. An old post from a Savannah community page appeared. Congratulations to Maya Johnson, the amazing single mom of 4 little angels. 4. Not 1, but 4 children. Ethan felt a tightness in his chest. What had he missed? And did he still have any chance to make it right? Outside, the Savannah sunlight remained gentle, but inside Ethan, a storm was beginning to brew. He knew now, this visit was no longer spontaneous. It started a journey he had never prepared for, facing the past, Maya, and the man he had tried so hard to deny. 10 years ago, Ethan Harper, a 25-year-old computer science student at the University of Georgia, lived in a world of code and circuitry. With messy brown hair and blue eyes constantly glued to his laptop screen, Ethan, a white American man, was the kind of person his friends called a digital dreamer. He didn't care about parties or weekend football games. Instead, he spent hours in his dorm room building software prototypes, dreaming of a startup that could change the world. But one June evening, everything changed. Ethan was dragged to a riverside cookout by his classmate, Jamal. You need to get out before you turn into a robot, Harper, Jamal joked, pushing him into a truck filled with grilled food and a Bluetooth speaker. Ethan reluctantly agreed, mostly to stop Jamal's nagging. When they arrived, the sun set, casting the Savannah River in a brilliant orange hue. The air smelled of barbecue, and soft jazz played from a corner of the grassy field. Ethan stood alone near the drink table, holding a soda can, feeling lost among the laughing crowd. And then he saw her. Maya Johnson, a 23-year-old Black American woman, stood in the middle of the lawn, her eyes sparkling like they reflected the sky. Her curly hair was loosely tied back, revealing warm brown skin and a smile that melted every distance. She wore a cream linen dress and was barefoot, showing 2 children how to dance to the jazz rhythm. She spun, laughing loudly when one of the boys tripped, then gently helped him back up. Her laughter, as clear as wind chimes, made Ethan forget the soda can he was squeezing in his hand. Don't just stand there debugging the universe, Jamal nudged Ethan with a smirk. Talk to her. Ethan shook his head, muttering something about not being good at small talk, but his eyes never left Maya. Something about her ease, her aliveness, made him, a man who lived by logic, feel his heart skip a beat. At last, he gathered his courage and stepped forward. Maya looked up and caught his gaze. You've been watching us dance for an hour, haven't you? She asked, teasing but warm. Ethan blushed and scratched his head. Yeah, maybe. I'm not very good at dancing. Maya laughed a sunshine smile. That's fine. What are you good at? Besides, it looks like you're trying to decode us. Ethan chuckled, feeling at ease for the first time all day. I do software, stuff like drones. Maya tilted her head, intrigued. Like that drone last week that crashed into the church tree? Pastor Brown's still telling that story. Ethan winced, but Maya's smile made it impossible to feel embarrassed for long. That was me, he admitted. I guess I owe the pastor an apology. They started talking, awkwardly at first, then as if they'd known each other forever. Maya shared stories of her childhood in Savannah's historic district, where she grew up as the daughter of a pastor and a seamstress. She worked part-time at a second-hand bookstore, but her dream was to open a tailoring studio where she could design clothes infused with Southern culture. Ethan opened up about his passion for the first time, writing lines of code that could turn ideas into reality, though often at the cost of feeling disconnected from the real world. "Maybe you're not lost," Maya said, her voice light like the wind. "You may be looking for a different rhythm." Those words, profound but straightforward, left Ethan stunned. No one had ever seen him that way, not as a machine, but as a human being with buried emotions. That night, beneath moss-draped oak trees, they sat on an old blanket, sharing stories until nearly dawn. Maya told him about breaking her mother's sewing machine and getting scolded for a week. Ethan admitted he once wrote a program to auto-reply to his mother's texts to buy more time for coding. They laughed and disagreed about everything, from Maya's jazz to Ethan's techno playlist, but every moment felt like a thread pulling them closer together. As the party ended, Ethan asked, "Can I see you again?" Maya looked at him, her eyes sparkling. "If you promise not to crash a drone into my bookstore." Ethan laughed, a strange warmth rising in him. "Promise." The next day, they met again at Maya's bookstore. She led him through the old shelves, pointed to a Maya Angelou poetry collection, and read a passage aloud. Ethan, who'd never understood poetry, was drawn in by her voice. They walked along the Savannah River, ate ice cream, and debated whether vanilla was boring. Maya called him a flavor enemy, and Ethan dubbed her the Queen of Chaos. But when she gently touched his hand to point at a boat drifting on the river, Ethan felt his heart race, like a piece of code had just found the bug it needed to fix. In the days that followed, they were inseparable. They explored Savannah together, its cobblestone alleys and abandoned warehouses, where Maya saw poetry and Ethan saw potential tech projects. They shared sandwiches at a small deli, where Maya convinced him to try the hot sauce and burst out laughing when he choked. Ethan began to realize that around Maya, he wasn't just a programmer. He was a man learning how to live. But even in those happy moments, Ethan felt a silent pressure mounting. He had just received an internship offer from a tech firm in Seattle, the opportunity to turn his startup dream into reality. He hadn't told Maya, afraid it would disrupt the rhythm they had just found. One night, as they sat on a bench by the river, Maya rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever get scared, Ethan?" she asked. "Are you scared that what you want might cost you what you need?" Ethan stayed silent, his hand tightening around hers. He wanted to say no, that he had everything under control. But Maya's question, like an unfinished line of code, left him wondering, was he ready to love? Was he prepared to give up the control he'd always clung to? In the weeks following the riverside picnic in Savannah, Ethan Harper and Maya Johnson became inseparable parts of each other's lives. Ethan, a 25-year-old white American computer science student with sharp blue eyes, began spending less time in his dorm room full of circuits and screens. Instead, he found joy in moments spent with Maya, a 23-year-old Black American woman with a radiant smile and a passion for the arts. They were like two opposite puzzle pieces. Ethan lived by logic and planning, while Maya flowed with emotion and vitality. They often met at the old bookstore, where Maya worked part-time. While she arranged faded novels, Ethan sat in the corner pretending to read, but just watching her. "You're staring again," Maya teased, tossing a feather pen his way. Ethan caught it, laughing. "I'm studying a new algorithm. It's called Maya Johnson. She shook her head, but her eyes sparkled with joy. Afternoons like that, they shared everything. Maya spoke of her dream to open a sewing studio where she would design clothes that embodied Southern heritage. Ethan shared his plans to build AI software that could predict human behavior. They disagreed on many things. Maya loved jazz. Ethan preferred techno. She believed art was freedom, and he saw it as a problem to be solved. But every disagreement only brought them closer. One summer night, they sat beneath the silver moonlight on the grass behind Maya's house. The air was humid and smelled faintly of freshly cut grass. Maya leaned back, gazing at the sky. Do you ever think about the future, Ethan? Not startups or code, but life? Lying beside her, Ethan felt the question pierce through his logic-bound shell. He admitted, I'm not good at thinking about things I can't measure. Maya turned toward him and gently touched his hand. Some things don't need to be measured, just felt. He looked into her eyes, and at that moment, he knew he was in love. Their first kiss followed, slow and awkward, but electric. Ethan felt his heart race like a program hitting an unfixable bug. Maya smiled and whispered, I knew you had a heart, even if you try to hide it. Ethan pulled her close and whispered, You just hacked it. Their love flared quickly, not out of haste, but because neither saw a reason to slow down. Together, they explored Savannah, strolling down River Street, where Maya pointed out vibrant murals, sharing sandwiches at a small café, where she convinced him to try spicy sauce that left him gulping water, and sitting in abandoned warehouses, where Maya saw poetry, and Ethan imagined data centers. Despite their differences, they completed each other. Maya taught Ethan to slow down, and Ethan helped her structure plans for her future sewing studio. Ethan knelt in the garden behind Maya's house 3 months later, holding a simple silver ring. I can't promise you the whole world, he said, trembling, but I promise to give you my whole world to make you happy. Maya Johnson, will you marry me? Maya's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. Only if you promise not to let a drone crash into the wedding. They embraced, laughing through tears, under moonlight and the hum of crickets. The wedding occurred on a spring morning in Maya's backyard. Family and close friends witnessed it. Maya wore a simple white dress sewn by her mother, Clara, each stitch soaked with love. Ethan, in a cream-colored suit, forgot how to breathe when he saw her walk toward him. Maya's father, Pastor William, officiated the ceremony, his warm voice blessing the union of two souls so different, yet harmonious. The reception was intimate. Homemade cake, lemonade, and jazz music played through an old speaker. Ethan and Maya danced their first dance on the grass, eyes locked, as if the world had faded away. But even in their joy, Ethan began to feel the growing weight of pressure. He had just received a formal offer from a tech firm in Seattle, a chance to turn his startup dream into reality. He shared it with Maya on their wedding night as they lay in a small rented house on the outskirts of Savannah. It's a big opportunity, Maya, he said, voice tinged with worry. But I don't want to be away from you. Maya rested her head on his chest and whispered, We'll figure it out, together. Ethan nodded, but inside, he wondered if he could balance love and ambition. In the weeks following the wedding, Ethan began working remotely for the Seattle firm, while Maya continued her job at the bookstore and developed her plans for the sewing studio. They still spent time together, but video calls and late-night emails increasingly consumed Ethan. One evening, when Maya suggested attending a jazz concert, Ethan declined, claiming he needed to finish a section of code. Maya smiled, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of sadness. Don't let the code swallow you whole, Ethan. she said softly. He laughed and promised to make it up to her, but both of them could feel a small distance beginning to grow. After the simple backyard wedding at Maya's home, Ethan Harper and Maya Johnson entered married life believing their love was strong enough to overcome any challenge. Ethan, a 25-year-old white American software engineer with sharp blue eyes, was energized for the future. Maya, a 23-year-old Black American woman with a radiant smile, still carried her warm heart and dream of opening a sewing studio. But only a few months in, their shared dream began to be tested by harsh realities. Ethan received an official offer from a tech company in Seattle, a position developing AI software with a salary 3 times higher than he'd ever imagined. It was a chance to lay the foundation for his startup, a dream he'd nurtured since college. "This is a turning point, Maya," he told her in their small Savannah kitchen, gripping a coffee mug. "But I don't want to be away from you." Maya, folding a piece of cotton fabric, looked up, her eyes gentle but tinged with worry. "We'll find a way, Ethan. I'll come to Seattle later once the studio is stable." They agreed to try a two-shore life. Ethan would move to Seattle, while Maya stayed in Savannah to care for her aging parents and launch the sewing studio. In the first few weeks, they kept their promise to talk daily. Each night, Ethan called from his small apartment in Seattle, the window overlooking a skyline glittering with lights. Sitting in the living room back home in Savannah, Maya shared stories about her first clients, an older woman ordering a dress for her granddaughter, and a couple wanting a handmade wedding gown. Ethan spoke about his AI projects and the night debugging code. They laughed, teased each other through the screen, and ended every call with, "I love you." But even in those moments, both felt a growing emptiness. Seattle swept Ethan into a relentless whirlwind. Meetings ran past midnight, investors demanded rapid results, and the pressure to build a reputation left him barely time to breathe. He began missing calls with Maya, offering excuses like being in a meeting or losing track of time. Maya, meanwhile, was just as busy. Her studio attracted tourists, but managing orders, caring for her parents, and participating in church events exhausted her. She tried not to notice when Ethan replied late, but each canceled call stung her heart. One evening, Maya called Ethan, her voice excited. "A little girl came to the studio today. She picked purple fabric to make a dress for her mom. I think I'll also make her a toy outfit for free." Ethan, sitting at his desk surrounded by a mess of documents, replied flatly, "Sounds nice. I just found a bug in the new algorithm. It could save the company millions." Maya went quiet for a moment, then said, "That's good, Ethan." The call ended early. For the first time, Maya didn't say "I love you." In the months that followed, their conversations became shorter and more fragmented. Maya talked about the church needing a new roof. Ethan mentioned a new round of funding. She brought up a neighbor who had lost his job. He switched topics to a patent application. They were like two parallel lines, touching through texts, but never truly meeting. Maya clung to hope. Each night, she lit a candle on her windowsill and whispered a prayer for Ethan and them. She sewed a small quilt and stitched his name in the corner, reminding them their love still lived. But deep down, she wondered, did Ethan still see her as home? Ethan felt the distance in Seattle too, but buried it beneath his busyness. He told himself he was building a future, not just for himself, but for Maya. Still, every time he looked out the office window at the glittering but cold city, he remembered those nights beside the Savannah River when Maya held his hand, and everything felt simple. "I'm doing the right thing, aren't I?" he asked himself, but never answered. One day, he opened their wedding photo on his phone. Maya in her white dress, her smile radiant, and felt his chest tighten. He texted her, "I miss you." Maya replied, "I miss you too. When are you coming home?" Ethan looked at his packed calendar and only answered, "Soon." But soon, it never came. One day, Maya called, her voice sounding different. "Ethan, I need to talk. Not over the phone. Can you come back this weekend?" Ethan, preparing for an important presentation, hesitated. I'm swamped this week, Maya. Is it urgent?" Maya paused, then said, "No, it's not urgent. I miss you." Ethan breathed a sigh of relief, but a creeping sense of dread began to rise inside. He promised to return next month, but both knew that promise was as fragile as thread. Maya returned to her studio and resumed work, but the light in her eyes dimmed. She looked at the unfinished quilt, her fingers brushing over the embroidered name Ethan in the corner. "We promised to do this together," she whispered. In Seattle, Ethan sat alone in his office, staring at the email confirming the Savannah flight he had just canceled. He told himself that just a few more months, once the project was complete, he'd make time for Maya. But deep down, he knew he was running, not from Maya, but from the fear that he wasn't enough to keep her. In a small apartment in Seattle, Ethan Harper sat alone in his office, the neon lights from the city skyline casting reflections through the window. At 26, he, a white American man with light brown hair and sharp blue eyes, had made significant strides at the tech company. His AI project drew investor attention, and his name started appearing in tech articles. But that success came at a cost. Long work nights, missed calls, and a widening distance from Maya Johnson, the wife he loved back in Savannah. Maya, a 24-year-old Black American woman, remained in Savannah, running her small sewing studio and caring for her parents. Though video calls with Ethan were becoming increasingly rare, she tried to keep their love burning. Each evening, she sat at her sewing table, embroidering intricate patterns onto fabric, whispering prayers for Ethan and them. Lately, however, Maya had begun to notice changes in her body. Fatigue, strange cravings, and a wondrous feeling she couldn't explain. One morning, she visited the local clinic, and the doctor confirmed it. She was pregnant. That evening, Maya sat in her living room, the soft glow of a table lamp illuminating the fabric in her hands. She took a deep breath and dialed Ethan's number. In Seattle, Ethan was reviewing a line of code, eyes locked on his screen. When the phone rang, he glanced over, saw Maya's name, and smiled. "Hey, love," he answered, his voice gentle but tinged with fatigue. "How was the studio today?" Maya gripped the phone, her voice trembling but full of emotion. "Ethan, I have something important to tell you. I'm pregnant." Time seemed to freeze. On the other end, Ethan leaned back in his chair, the pen in his hand dropping to the floor. The word pregnant echoed in his mind, foreign and heavy, like a line of code he couldn't compile. He was silent for so long that Maya finally asked, "Are you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here," he replied hoarsely. "Are you sure? I mean, have you checked?" Maya nodded, though he couldn't see it. "I just got back from the clinic. It's confirmed. I thought you should be the first to know." Ethan rubbed his temples, feeling a cold wave of fear rush down his spine. He wasn't angry. He wasn't ashamed. He was afraid that a child would shatter every plan and ounce of control he'd spent his life building. That's wonderful, Maya," he said, trying to sound happy, but his voice lacked energy. I need a little time to process this. Can I call you back later?" Maya bit her lip, sensing the emotional distance in his tone. "Okay," she said softly, But Ethan, I want us to talk. Talk. He promised to call back. But when the call ended, he just sat there, staring blankly at the computer screen, his mind empty. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He paced his apartment, a cup of cold coffee in hand. He had never imagined himself as a father. His life was built around controllable variables, deadlines, code, and contracts. A child was an unknown, something with no manual, no debugger. He told himself he was just in shock, that joy would come soon, but the fear grew. He thought about Maya, her smile, the way she made everything simple, and felt guilty for not sharing her happiness. Back in Savannah, Maya lay in bed, her hand resting on her belly, feeling a small life beginning to grow. She smiled, but tears rolled down her cheeks. She knew Ethan was scared. He had always feared what couldn't be programmed. But she hoped, as she always had, that he would change, that their love would be strong enough to endure. The next morning, she sent him a message with an ultrasound photo attached, and the words, "This is us, Ethan, our child." Ethan looked at the image, his heart pounding, and replied only, "Beautiful, I'll be home soon. I'll be, In the following weeks, Maya tried to draw Ethan into her pregnancy journey. She sent him minor updates, that she was craving pickles, that she'd heard the baby's heartbeat, and that she had sewn a tiny pair of socks with the words, "Daddy's little co-pilot." Ethan responded with short messages. "Funny, sounds great." But when Maya called to talk about a mild pain in her side, Ethan, busy in a meeting, replied absent-mindedly, "It's probably stress. Try to rest." Maya went quiet, feeling a small crack open in her heart. She began to rely more on her family. Clara's mother cooked nourishing meals and rubbed her back with lavender oil. Her father, Pastor William, brought her ginger tea and told jokes to lift her spirits. They said nothing about Ethan's growing absence, but Maya knew they noticed. One evening, while sitting with her mother, Clara held her hand. "You're not alone, Maya. No matter what happens, you have us." Maya nodded, but in her heart, she still hoped Ethan would show up, hold her, and say, "I'm ready. We'll do this together." But Ethan didn't come. He sank deeper into work, using it as a shield to avoid facing his fear. He told himself he was building a future for Maya and the baby. But whenever he thought about the child, he felt suffocated. One day, he received a package from Maya, a pair of baby socks with the words, "Daddy's little co-pilot." He held them, his fingers tracing the stitches, and for the first time, a tear slipped down his cheek. "What am I doing?" he whispered, but didn't dare to call her back. In the cold apartment in Seattle, Ethan Harper, a 26-year-old white American man with conflicted blue eyes, couldn't shake the unease ever since Maya told him she was pregnant. Every night, he stared at the ultrasound photo she had sent, his heart pounding but clenched by fear. Ethan, a programmer who is used to controlling every variable, couldn't imagine himself as a father. Meanwhile, in Savannah, Maya Johnson, a 24-year-old Black American woman carrying a tiny life within her, still hoped that Ethan would overcome his fear and become the husband and father she believed he could be. In the weeks following the pregnancy news, Ethan grew increasingly distant. He replied to Maya's messages with short sentences, avoided long calls, and buried himself in work at the tech company. Now 5 months pregnant, Maya sensed the shift. She sent him updates, a photo of her growing belly, a pair of baby socks she had sewn herself, and an audio recording of the baby's heartbeat. Still, Ethan responded only with emojis or comments like, "Sounds nice." One night, when she called to talk about a mild cramp, Ethan, in the middle of debugging code, replied, "It's normal, Maya. Try to get some rest." His voice was cold, as if speaking to a colleague, not his wife. Maya hung up, tears falling down her cheeks, but told herself he just needed time. But Ethan didn't need time. He needed an escape. The fear of becoming a father, the mounting pressure at work, and the loss of control sent him into a spiral. He convinced himself that leaving Maya would be best, not for him, but for her and the baby. One morning, he booked a flight to Savannah without telling her. He told himself he'd be honest, that he would explain. But deep down, he knew he was running away. In Savannah, Maya was home, sitting in an armchair, folding tiny baby clothes. Her belly was now visibly round, and she smiled each time she felt a gentle kick. The house smelled faintly of cookies her mother, Clara, had just baked. On the table sat a small box with 4 pairs of baby socks, 2 pink, 2 blue, that Clara had knitted, joking, "You never know, it might be twins." When a knock came at the door, Maya was surprised. She opened it and found Ethan standing there, holding a small suitcase. He looked thinner, paler than when she last saw him. "Ethan," she said, her voice a mix of joy and worry. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" Ethan stepped inside, avoiding her eyes. "I need to talk, Maya, face to face." She gestured toward the living room. "Come in. Do you want something to drink?" But Ethan didn't sit. He stood there, hands in his pockets, staring at the socks on the table like they were evidence against him. "Maya," he began, voice trembling, "I can't do this." Her brow furrowed, her heart racing. "Do what? Work in Seattle?" Ethan shook his head, inhaling deeply. "No. Be a father. Be us. I'm not ready. I never was." His words sliced through the air like a knife. Maya stood up quickly, her arms instinctively cradling her belly. "Ethan, what are you saying? We're having a baby." Ethan turned away, unable to meet her gaze. "I know. And I tried, Maya. I tried to picture myself in that role. But I can't. I'm not who you think I am. I don't want to be a father." Maya stepped back, her breath catching. "You don't want the baby? Or you don't want us?" Her voice was sharp, wounded, angry. Ethan said nothing, and in that silence, she had her answer. "I gave up everything," Maya said, her voice breaking. "I stayed here alone. I believed in you. I'm carrying our child, and now you say you don't want it?" Ethan lowered his head, voice hoarse. "I'm sorry, Maya, but it's better to end this now than bring a child into a broken family." Maya let out a bitter laugh, tears falling. "A broken family? No, Ethan. You're the one breaking it." She pointed to the door, her voice trembling but firm. "If you want to leave, then go. But don't you dare come back pretending you care." Ethan stood frozen, wanting to say something, but the words wouldn't come. He picked up his suitcase, stepped through the door, and as it closed behind him, Maya collapsed to the floor, clutching her belly and sobbing uncontrollably. Her father, Pastor William, heard her and rushed in, dropping to his knees beside her. "I'm here, baby girl," he said, wrapping his arms around her. Her mother, Clara, brought a glass of water, but Maya only shook her head, feeling her baby kick again, like a reminder not to give up. 3 days later, Maya returned to the clinic for a routine checkup. She sat in the waiting room, clutching a hand-knit scarf, trying to soothe the pain in her heart. As the ultrasound technician began scanning, she frowned, examined the screen more closely, then left the room to get a senior nurse. Maya's chest tightened. "Is something wrong?" she asked, her voice shaking. The nurse returned with a soft smile. "Nothing's wrong, Ms. Johnson. It's just, we made a mistake last time. You're not having one baby." Maya blinked. You mean twins? The nurse shook her head, her eyes lighting up. No, you're having 4. Maya was stunned, her hand trembling as she rested it on her belly. 4? Like 4 babies? The nurse nodded, handing her the ultrasound print with 4 tiny heartbeats. It's rare, but they're healthy. Maya stared at the image, tears falling, not out of fear, but from a sense of wonder. I'm not alone, she whispered, as if to herself and the lives growing inside her. She left the clinic and stepped out into the streets of Savannah, sunlight filtering through the oak trees. Ethan was gone, but Maya felt something new rising within her. She would be everything her children needed, and more. After Ethan Harper walked away, Maya Johnson, a 24-year-old Black American woman, stood at a crossroads in life. Carrying 4 unborn children, she felt both immense pain and rising strength. The small house in Savannah, once filled with hopes of building a family with Ethan, had now become the heart of her journey as a single mother. With the support of her family and community, Maya was determined not just to survive, but to build a meaningful life for her children and for herself. The day Maya gave birth was a freezing winter morning when a sudden storm swept through Savannah, rattling the old window frames. Her water broke while she was folding a baby blanket, and her parents, Pastor William and Clara, rushed her to the hospital. The first cry rang out in the delivery room. Olivia, a baby girl with soft curls and wide eyes. Next came Miles, his tiny hand clenched like he was ready to fight. Ava arrived third, petite, but with a thunderous cry. Last was Liam, the smallest, with a faint but determined wail. Exhausted, Maya held each child through the incubator glass and whispered, "We'll be okay, my loves. I promise." The next 6 weeks were a marathon. All 4 babies, born prematurely, needed intensive care in the NICU. Maya spent day and night at the hospital, monitoring heart rate machines, learning to pump milk, and singing lullabies through the glass walls. She slept only in short bursts on a vinyl chair, waking whenever one of them cried. Her parents rotated shifts to help. Clara brought hot soup and clean clothes, while Pastor William read the Bible beside her, not preaching, just silently offering strength. The church community rallied too, delivering meals and diapers, and even launching a GoFundMe campaign to help cover hospital expenses. But no one could fill the emptiness Ethan had left behind. Maya closed her sewing studio, not because she had given up on her dream, but because her children needed her more. Finances were tight, forcing her to stretch every dollar. She bought discounted groceries, reused hand-me-downs, and declined every unnecessary expense. Some nights, she sat at the kitchen table staring at a pile of bills and quietly cried. But every morning, Olivia's laughter, or Liam's tiny hand gripping hers, pulled her back up. "I can do this," she told herself, and she did. When the children turned 1, Maya began planning for the future. She enrolled in online courses to become a pediatric nurse, a new dream born from her long days in the NICU. She studied at night while her kids slept, textbooks spread across the kitchen table, and earbuds in her ears. Once, she took a quiz on her phone while feeding Liam from a bottle, eyes stinging from exhaustion. "If I can raise 4, I can care for 100, she told her professor on Zoom, her tired smile unwavering. As the children grew, each revealed a unique personality. Olivia, the eldest, loved books and often read aloud to her siblings, her voice serious like a tiny teacher. Miles was curious and mischievous, dismantling toys to figure out how they worked, then putting them back together with extra parts. Ava, the little artist, painted all over the walls, explaining that it was a family portrait. Liam, the youngest, had a bright, infectious laugh and loved running around the yard, chasing butterflies. Or nothing. They played, argued, and fell asleep curled up together on the sofa, creating a chaotic world overflowing with love. One afternoon, when the children were 3, Maya sat outside watching them play tag. Olivia paused, frowning, and asked, "Mom, where's Dad?" Maya froze but replied gently, "Dad had other dreams, sweetheart. But we have each other, and that's enough." Olivia nodded, though her eyes hinted the question wasn't quite gone. Maya embraced her, her heart aching, but she didn't let sadness win. She taught her children to love, forgive, and believe in the strength of family, even if that family was just the 5 of them. The community remained her anchor. The church hosted birthday parties for the children, with homemade cake and balloons. A retired seamstress donated baby clothes. A neighbor lent her a double stroller. Though help was abundant, Maya still felt alone. Some nights, after the kids had fallen asleep, she would open her old wedding photo, look at Ethan's face, and wonder where he was, if he ever thought of her. Then she folded the photo, put it back in its box, and continued. She wasn't waiting for Ethan. She was building her life. At 28, Maya was nearing the end of her nursing program. She dreamed of working in a children's hospital, helping families like hers once was. In her living room, she hung a small sign that read, "We didn't just survive, we thrived." And they truly did. Through Liam's laughter, Ava's paintings, Miles's questions, and Olivia's quiet grace. Maya was no longer the girl hoping Ethan would return. She was a mother, a warrior, a woman who had found her strength within herself. At 33, Ethan Harper, a white American man whose once brilliant blue eyes now bore the weariness of time, stood at the pinnacle of the tech world. Harper Tech, the company he had founded in Seattle, had become a giant in the AI industry, with billion-dollar contracts and a headquarters glowing in neon light. His name appeared on Forbes, his TED Talks garnered millions of views, and he owned a penthouse overlooking Puget Sound. However, as the city lights shimmered outside his window each night, Ethan felt an emptiness he could no longer ignore. His success, dazzling as it appeared, was like a perfectly written code, flawless but devoid of meaning. For 7 years since leaving Maya Johnson and the unborn child she carried, Ethan had tried to bury the past. He threw himself into work, avoided deep relationships, and told himself he had made the right decision, that he wasn't cut out to be a husband or father. But the dreams of Savannah never let go. He dreamt of Maya, her radiant smile by the river, and sometimes of a child with eyes like his, looking up at him silently asking, "Why?" Each time he woke, he sipped black coffee and returned to his keyboard. But the guilt grew heavier. One evening, at a tech conference in San Francisco, Ethan sat in the audience, listening to an older colleague, David, speak about family. David, an engineer who had once turned down a significant promotion to stay close to his kids, said, "Money and fame don't hold you at night. Only family does that." The words, simple yet piercing, hit Ethan like a blade. He thought of Maya, of the promise he broke, and, for the first time, asked himself, "What did I trade away?" That night, Ethan opened his laptop in his hotel room and searched for Maya. He scrolled through community posts from Savannah until one stopped his breath cold. Congratulations to Maya Johnson, the excellent single mother of 4 angels, on receiving a pediatric nursing scholarship. 4, not 1, but 4 children. Ethan stared at the screen, his breath short. He clicked on the attached photo. Maya, her curly hair tied back loosely, standing among 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys, all bearing traits eerily familiar. The blue eyes, the cleft chin. He felt his chest tighten, as though the entire world had collapsed. Ethan dug deeper. He found older posts. Maya had given birth to 4 premature babies, faced the NICU alone, closed her sewing studio to raise them, and was now studying to become a nurse. Each detail struck his conscience like a hammer. He remembered the day he left. Maya, 5 months pregnant, crying as she said, "You're breaking this family." He had believed leaving was protecting her. But now, he saw it clearly. He had abandoned her at her most vulnerable. "Who am I?" he whispered, his hand trembling as he closed the laptop. In the days that followed, Ethan couldn't concentrate. During meetings, he drifted off, his eyes vacant. One night, he pulled out the baby socks Maya had once sent, embroidered with the words, "Daddy's little co-pilot." He held them to his chest, and tears streamed down his face. He remembered Maya's laughter and how she made him feel like a human being, not just a machine writing code. He began to understand that no award or contract could ever fill the void he created when he walked away from her. Ethan decided to act. He reached out to an old Savannah friend, Jamal, who had introduced him to Maya. Over the phone, Jamal didn't hide his disappointment. "You left her, Harper. She's strong, but you owe her more than an apology." Jamal shared that Maya had built an admirable life, raising 4 children with family and community help. "She doesn't need you," Jamal said. "But if you want to make things right, prove you deserve the chance." Ethan nodded, even though Jamal couldn't see it. "I'll try," he said, his voice hoarse. He booked a flight to Savannah, telling his assistant he needed to attend to personal matters. On the plane, he wrote a letter by hand, though he wasn't sure he'd give it to her. "Maya, I don't expect your forgiveness. I want you to know I was wrong, and I want to understand what I missed. If you give me the slightest chance, I won't waste it." He folded the letter, placed it in his pocket, and gazed out the airplane window. Below, the clouds drifted slowly, like they too were waiting for him to face his past. When the plane touched down in Savannah, Ethan's heart pounded. He didn't know how Maya would react: anger, coldness, or simple refusal to see him. But he knew he couldn't keep living with regret. He rented a car and drove to Broughton Street, where he once saw Maya and the children at the Rusty Lantern Café. It was still there, the faded blue sign swaying gently in the breeze. Ethan stood outside, his hand clutching the letter in his pocket. He took a deep breath. He wasn't seeking instant forgiveness. He only wanted to begin. A single step to prove he was no longer the man who walked away 7 years ago. Ethan Harper, a 33-year-old white American man whose blue eyes now brimmed with regret, stood outside the Rusty Lantern Café on Broughton Street in Savannah. After 7 years of walking away from Maya Johnson and the family he never knew, he had returned, carrying an unsent handwritten letter and a resolve to make things right, even if that chance had already passed. In his coat pocket, the baby socks embroidered with Daddy's little co-pilot, a gift Maya had sent during her pregnancy, reminded him of everything he had lost. Ethan took a deep breath and pushed open the cafe door, the bell above ringing softly. Inside, the aroma of roasted coffee blended with low murmurs of conversation. Ethan scanned the room, his heart pounding. Maya sat at an oak table in the far corner, cutting pancakes into tiny bites for Liam, the youngest boy with curly hair and a radiant smile. Olivia, the eldest, read quietly from a slim book, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. Miles, mischievous as ever, tried to balance a spoon on his nose, while Ava, with her neatly braided hair, doodled on a napkin. Ethan froze, breath catching. 4 children, each bearing a feature of his, from blue eyes to the cleft chin, stood as living proof of the years he had missed. Maya looked up, her gaze locking onto Ethan's through the spoon she held. The smile on her lips vanished, replaced by sharp alertness. She stood slowly, positioning herself between the children and Ethan like a lioness guarding her cubs. "Ethan," she said, her voice low and cool. "What are you doing here?" Though calm, her voice carried a force that made Ethan feel small. He swallowed hard, gripping the edge of his coat. "Maya, I just wanted to talk. I didn't mean to disturb you." Olivia looked up from her book, her gaze sharp. "Mom, who is he?" she asked, her tone curious but tinged with suspicion. Maya placed a gentle but firm hand on Olivia's shoulder. "Just someone Mommy used to know, sweetheart. Finish your breakfast." She turned back to Ethan, her eyes never leaving his. "If you want to talk, meet me by the river after school. But Ethan, don't hurt my children." Her words drew a line in the sand, clear, sharp, and immovable. Ethan nodded, not daring to protest. "I understand. The river. After school. I'll be there." He glanced at the 4 children again, his heart aching as he saw Miles laughing with Ava and Liam, offering Olivia a piece of pancake. They were a family, his family, but he was a stranger. As Maya gathered the children to leave, Liam looked back and waved, his innocence untainted. Ethan gave a faint smile, but as the cafe door closed behind them, he sank into a chair and buried his face in his hands. "I missed everything," he whispered. The rest of the day, Ethan wandered the streets of Savannah, thoughts tangled and heavy. He passed the old bookstore where Maya once worked, now shuttered, and the dream sewing studio, now just an empty storefront. Every corner recalled memories. Their first ice cream by the river, the night he proposed in her garden. He pulled the letter from his pocket and reread it. "Maya, I don't expect your forgiveness. I want you to know I was wrong." He wondered if these words could ever reach her, or if they were just meaningless lines of code in a broken program. By sunset, Ethan stood beside an old bench at the Savannah riverfront. The river shimmered in the golden light, but peace eluded him. He paced, hands in his pockets, waiting. Footsteps approached. Maya appeared, alone. She wore a denim jacket, her curly hair tied back loosely, her eyes calm but unyielding. "You came," she said evenly. "So talk, Ethan. Why are you here?" Ethan inhaled deeply, steadying his voice. "I didn't know you had 4 children, Maya. I swear I didn't. When I left, I thought I was protecting you and the baby. But I was wrong. I was wrong about everything." He held out the letter, but Maya didn't take it. She crossed her arms, her gaze sharp. "You didn't ask, Ethan. You didn't care. You left me alone, with 4 babies. And now what? Do you want forgiveness to help you sleep at night?" Ethan shook his head, his voice raspy. "No, I don't deserve forgiveness. I want to understand. About you, about the kids. I want to know what I missed, and if you'll let me. I want to be part of their lives." Maya gave a soft laugh, not of joy, but disbelief. "They don't know who you are. They grew up with love, with family, with a community. They don't need a father who shows up after 7 years, thinking everything can be fixed." Her words cut deep, but Ethan didn't back away. "I know I can't fix the past, but I'm here, Maya. I'm not leaving. I want one chance, no matter how small, to show you I'm not the man who walked away." Maya looked at him, her expression caught between pain and uncertainty. She remembered the day he left, the nights she cried alone in the NICU, Olivia's question, "Where's Daddy?" But she also saw something different in his eyes. something she hadn't seen the day he abandoned her. Sincerity. After a long silence, she spoke. "We can talk," she said, "but not now. Tomorrow, after school, at the park near our house. And Ethan, if you hurt them, I will never forgive you." Ethan nodded, his voice barely audible. "Thank you, Maya." She turned and walked into the fading sunset, leaving Ethan standing there with the letter still clenched. The river kept flowing beside him, steady and silent, as if witnessing the fragile beginning of something new, a beginning both uncertain and full of meaning. Ethan Harper, a 33-year-old white American man whose blue eyes now reflected determination, began his journey of redemption in Savannah after walking away from Maya Johnson and the 4 children he never knew. The riverside conversation had opened a narrow door, but Maya, a 31-year-old Black American woman with unwavering strength, drew a clear line. Any mistake from Ethan would close that door forever. Ethan understood that trust wasn't rebuilt through words. It required action, and he was ready to prove he had changed. The next day, Ethan arrived at the park near Maya's home, where she had agreed to meet after school. He stood beneath a tall oak, clutching a small gift bag. 4 children's books, each carefully chosen for Olivia, Miles, Ava, and Liam, based on what he had observed at the café. When Maya appeared with the 4 children, his heart pounded. Olivia, the eldest, walked with purpose, her eyes watchful. Miles skipped ahead, toy car in hand. Ava clutched Maya's hand, her braided hair glistening in the sunlight. Liam ran ahead, laughing as he chased a bird. Maya looked at Ethan, still guarded. "Say it, Ethan. What do you want from my children?" Ethan took a deep breath, his voice low. "I want to know them, Maya. I want to be part of their lives, if you and they will let me." He held out the gift bag, hesitating. "I brought these. For the kids." Maya checked the contents, then nodded, allowing him to give them the gifts. Olivia received a book about science. Her eyes lit up, though she remained cautious. Miles cheered when he saw the car-themed book. Ava hugged her comic book, while Liam beamed at the animal book. "Thanks, mister," Liam chirped, and Ethan smiled, though the word meister stung a little. In the following days, Ethan slowly began participating in their lives. He drove Miles to his after-school robotics club and watched the boy build a solar-powered car. He listened to Ava describe her latest drawing, nodding as she explained it was a sky that sang. With Olivia, he discussed a book she was reading, surprised by her depth. He ran through the park with Liam, laughing as they tumbled onto the grass. Maya observed from a distance, not intervening, but her eyes remained wary. She wrestled with her doubts. She wanted her children to have a father, but the memory of Ethan walking away still haunted her. One evening, after Ethan had dropped the kids off from a library reading session, Olivia pulled him aside. "You made Mom sad once, didn't you?" she asked seriously. Ethan knelt, meeting her gaze. "Yes, Olivia, and it's the thing I regret most. But I'm here now to make things right, if you'll let me." Olivia nodded slowly but said nothing more. Maya, who had overheard, felt something stir in her chest. She realized Ethan hadn't returned to ease his guilt. He wanted to change. Then, a crisis struck. One stormy night, as Maya washed dishes in the kitchen, she heard a loud thud from the backyard. Her father, Pastor William, had collapsed while repairing the fence, clutching his chest. "Dad!" she screamed, rushing out. She checked his faint pulse and dialed 911, her voice trembling. "My father! He fell! Please come quickly!" She ordered the kids to stay inside and knelt beside her father, rain soaking her clothes. Paramedics arrived and rushed William to the hospital. Maya followed her mind in turmoil. Maya sat in the waiting room at the hospital, hands clenched and eyes swollen. She called her mother, Clara, to watch the kids, then wrapped her arms around herself, struggling to stay calm. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Maya!" Ethan appeared, soaked from the rain, hair disheveled. "Jamal called me. I came as soon as I heard." Maya looked at him in surprise, but said nothing. Ethan sat beside her, not pressing, simply present. "I'm here," he whispered. "You're not alone." Time passed slowly. Maya bit her lip, torn between the fear of losing her father and the unexpected comfort of Ethan's presence. Eventually, a doctor arrived, speaking gently. "Mr. William had a mild stroke. He's stable, but we'll monitor him overnight." Maya exhaled deeply, shoulders trembling as tears streamed down her face. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, soft and steady. "You did everything right, Maya." She turned to him, her eyes softening though still full of emotion. "I thought I was going to lose him," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "I know, but he's going to be okay." They entered William's room. He opened his eyes, weak but smiling. "Crying again, sweetheart?" he teased. Maya laughed through her tears and held his hand. William turned his gaze to Ethan, who stood quietly in the corner. "Did you call him?" he asked. Maya shook her head. "Mom did." William nodded, then looked Ethan over. "Good." That night, in the hospital waiting room, Maya and Ethan sat side by side, saying little. Eventually, Maya broke the silence. "You didn't have to come." Ethan looked at her, his voice sincere. "But I wanted to. I want to be here, for you, the kids, and this family." Maya didn't respond, but she didn't ask him to leave either. After Maya's father, Pastor William, suffered a mild stroke, Ethan Harper, a 33-year-old white American man with blue eyes full of resolve, became a more constant presence in the lives of Maya Johnson and her 4 children, Olivia, Miles, Ava, and Liam. Maya, a 31-year-old black woman with quiet resilience, remained cautious, but Ethan's consistent actions, from supporting her at the hospital to quiet moments with the children, made her begin to see him in a new light. Still, the memory of his betrayal 7 years ago lingered like a scar that had never fully healed. Ethan continued to prove his transformation through small, concrete actions. He picked up Miles from the robotics club and listened as the boy explained how to code a toy car. He joined Ava in a painting session, letting her show him how to mix colors. Even if the result was a chaotic canvas, she proudly called her masterpiece. He read a science book side by side with Olivia, answering her sharp questions with patience. With Liam, he kicked a soccer ball across the yard, laughing when the boy purposely aimed it at his legs. Each moment was a brick in the slow rebuilding of trust, no matter how small. Maya watched, her heart caught between old wounds and new hopes. She noticed how the children began to open up to Ethan. Liam called him the funny man. Ava gifted him a drawing, and Miles eagerly showed off a homemade model car. But Olivia, the eldest, still held back. One evening, as Ethan helped her with homework, she asked plainly, "What if you leave again? What are we supposed to do?" Ethan didn't flinch. "I'm not leaving, Olivia. I've missed too much already and won't let that happen again." Olivia nodded slowly, but her eyes stayed cautious. A chance to prove his promise came on a significant day. Maya had just completed her pediatric nursing program, a milestone earned through late-night studying and countless sacrifices. She was invited to attend a formal certificate ceremony, but worried about leaving the kids at home. When Ethan found out, he offered, "Let me watch them. You deserve to enjoy this moment." Maya hesitated, haunted by broken promises from the past. But something in Ethan's steady gaze made her nod. Okay. But Ethan, call me if anything happens. That evening, Ethan transformed the house into a playground. He made pizza with the kids, letting dough cover the floor. Olivia directed the decorating. Miles overloaded the cheese. Ava drew smiling faces in ketchup, and Liam tossed flour into the air, giggling uncontrollably. Afterward, they built a blanket fort in the living room, watched cartoons, and Ethan read them bedtime stories in goofy voices that had all 4 kids rolling with laughter. When Liam lost a baby tooth mid-evening, Ethan handled it with calm efficiency, texting Maya, "The tooth fairy has made her visit. All's well." Maya smiled at the message from her seat at the ceremony, a strange wave of peace washing over her. When she returned home, the house was messy. Flour on the floor, blankets draped over couches. But the children were sound asleep. Olivia clutched a book, and Liam curled up in a blanket. Ethan, exhausted, sat on a chair with a faint smile. "We survived," he said. Maya looked around, then back at him. "They'll remember this night, Ethan." He nodded, his voice soft. "I hope so. And I hope you see. I'm trying." The pivotal moment came weeks later at a church picnic. Maya, the children, and Ethan joined the community for games of catch and homemade cookies. Ethan gently pulled Maya aside near the riverbank when the kids ran off to play. He reached into his pocket and took out a small box, opening it to reveal a simple gold ring with 4 tiny stones, one for each child. Then he dropped to one knee, voice trembling but steady. "Maya Johnson, I destroyed what we had and don't deserve your forgiveness. But in the last 7 years, I've learned that nothing means anything without you and the kids. I can't promise a perfect life, but I promise to be here, every day, for you, for them. Will you give me a chance to begin again?" Maya stood still, her eyes glistening. She remembered the lonely nights in the NICU, Olivia's questions about her father, and more recently, the laughter, the support, and the warmth Ethan had brought back into their lives. She wrestled with the fear of being hurt again, and the belief that he truly had changed. Finally, she touched his hand, her voice gentle but firm. "We'll take it slow, Ethan. Not for you, for the kids, and because I want to believe in you." She didn't take the ring yet, but held his hand. A small gesture, but one full of meaning. From a distance, the children came running. "Mom, what's Mr. Ethan doing?" Liam asked. Maya smiled, pulling them close. "Mr. Ethan asked Mommy a vast question. And I told him, we'll find the answer together." Ethan looked at the family before him, his heart full. He knew the road ahead was long, but for the first time, he felt he was exactly where he was meant to be. After Ethan Harper's heartfelt proposal, Maya Johnson, a strong and resilient 31-year-old black woman, agreed to give him a second chance, with one condition: they would take it slow for the sake of the children and her heart. Ethan, a 33-year-old white man with blue eyes now shining with hope, understood that the trust of Maya and their 4 children, Olivia, Miles, Ava, and Liam, would have to be earned day by day. As autumn swept through Savannah, casting golden leaves over cobblestone streets, it felt like the city was welcoming their quiet reunion. Ethan remained present for the grand gestures and in the quiet, often unseen moments. He helped Olivia prepare for her science presentation, patiently rewriting each sentence at her request. He tinkered with an old watch alongside Miles, laughing as a spring popped out and flew across the room. For Ava, he bought a new watercolor set and sat beside her as she painted a portrait of their family, now 5 figures instead of 4. With Liam, He built a swing in the backyard, pushing him higher each time the boy giggled. "Higher! Daddy, Ethan!" The word daddy stunned Ethan into silence, his eyes glistening. But he only smiled and gave the swing another push. Maya, though still guarded, began to feel something shift inside her. She no longer looked at Ethan through the lens of old pain. He wasn't just showing up, he was staying. Through busy weekdays, through Liam's fevers, and parent-teacher conferences. One evening, as they washed dishes side by side, Maya said softly, "I forgot what it felt like to have someone beside me." Ethan dried his hands and replied, "Let me remind you. Every day. If you'll let me." She smiled, a soft, genuine smile, and felt her heart slowly opening for the first time in 7 years. The opportunity to formalize their reunion came when Maya landed a job as a pediatric nurse at the local hospital. To celebrate, Ethan, with help from the kids, organized a surprise backyard party. Olivia wrote a poem. Miles made a sign that read, "Best Nurse Ever." Ava decorated it with balloons. And Liam, with Ethan's guidance, baked a slightly lopsided cake full of love. When Maya stepped outside, the kids shouted, "Congratulations, Mommy!" She hugged each of them tightly, then turned to Ethan, eyes shining. "You did all this?" He shrugged, grinning. "I was just the assistant. They were the directors." That night, under twinkling string lights, Ethan gently pulled Maya aside. He brought out the same ring from his earlier proposal, a simple gold band with 4 small stones, one for each child, and knelt again. "Maya, I asked you once, and you said we'd take it slow. But now, I want to ask again, not for me, but for us. I love you, not for who you were 7 years ago, but for who you are today. A mother, a woman, a fighter who taught me what family means. Will you marry me, again, and build our future together?" Tears welled in Maya's eyes as she looked at him, then at the children watching curiously from across the yard. She remembered the lonely nights in the NICU, the unanswered questions from Olivia, and the recent memories. Ethan pushing Liam on the swing, reading with Olivia, painting with Ava, and fixing toys with Miles. She took a deep breath and clasped his hand. "Yes, Ethan, but we do it properly this time. Slow, not perfect, but real." The children erupted into cheers, rushing to embrace them. "Do we get wedding cake now?" Liam shouted. The ceremony occurred a few months later, on a spring afternoon in the backyard beneath the magnolia tree that had once witnessed their first days of love. Only close friends and family attended. Maya wore a simple sky blue dress, her natural curls free and glowing. In a gray suit, Ethan couldn't take his eyes off her. Pastor William, now recovered, officiated the ceremony with warmth. They walked through shadows, but love and trust led them home. Clara, Maya's mother, wiped tears with pride. Each child had a role. Olivia read her poem aloud, her voice trembling but strong. Miles carried the rings with solemn purpose. Ava handed out hand-drawn programs featuring a family of 5. Liam, wearing a bow tie, handed out juice cups, declaring, "You have to say congratulations before you drink." The guests roared with laughter. When Ethan and Maya exchanged vows, there were no flowery promises, just a simple commitment. "We'll stand by each other through everything for this family." They danced their first dance barefoot on the lawn under the spring sun. The children joined, turning the dance into a joyful, chaotic game. Later, the family gathered beneath the magnolia tree, sharing cake and stories. Maya leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder and whispered, "We did it." He kissed her forehead and replied, "And we'll keep doing it." Olivia, nearby, asked, "Daddy, You're staying forever." Ethan took her hand gently. "Forever, sweetheart." The children dozed off on a picnic blanket beneath the tree as night fell. Ethan and Maya sat on a nearby bench, their hands entwined. They didn't promise a perfect ending, just that they would face whatever came together. And somewhere in the soft rustle of Savannah's river and the golden hush of evening, the city seemed to offer its quiet blessing to a family finally made whole.